Story 1. He continues to prove he is an asshole, not a leader, and is not a public servant in any sense of the term. Not surprised in the least. Story 2. When he demands the Nobel Peace Prize again, can someone remind him of this quote? Story 3. It shows how foolish Trump is. Even if you truly think that, why say it out loud? That's not the correct answer regardless of what political side you are on. I wouldn't expect him to say something smart. He has a long track record of making inflammatory statements. That's how he got elected twice. He is unlikely to stop if it gets headlines that deflect from accusations against him. Story 4. I was shocked. He said couldn't care less. Not could care less. I didn't know he was that smart. Story 5. Keeping people apart is better for his brand. He stokes fear and rage in his supporters, and it is the only love he knows. Story 6. Why would I be surprised? The man is a narcissistic sociopath. Story 7. I think the same thing every time I hear him speak. When is this asshole going to die? He is the worst American I have ever learned about. Story 8. He's a monster who appeals to the worst people in this country. Story 9. He has already posted on Truth Social that he hates Democrats, so this is mild. Story 10. Trump supports white supremacy and violence. He is a monster and a pedophile. Fuck that piece of shit. Release the Epstein files. Story 11. Those are not the words of a legitimate president of the United States. Story 12. It is easier to loot when the plebs are busy fighting each other. Story 13. Watch the clip. He said he could not care less about getting in trouble for saying what he was about to say. We already get enough shit for allegedly ignoring context, so let us not do that. Story 14. I will not be voting for him in the next presidential election. That is for sure. Story 15. It is unsurprising. The country will never be truly unified because a united populace is difficult to control. Division is purposeful. Politicians spew hatred and vitriol, and media outlets owned by the same interests spread outright lies about each other, focusing on the most vile acts and driving the wedge deeper. The United States has been moving in this direction deliberately for a long time. Reagan's advisor warned about the danger of an educated working class, leading to cuts and reduced access to education. That approach was promoted by the Heritage Foundation, which supports the current president. Division makes us weak, and so does the fact that our politicians are for sale by anyone, including other countries. It is a joke, and I do not understand why more people do not see what a sham the entire system is. Story 16. These are the words of a Russian operative. Obvious to the whole world except Americans. Story 17. He is a fucking moron who has never cared about anything but himself. Story 18. For decades, historians and political scientists have studied Hitler's rise to power. All of it is wasted because we refuse to see what is before our very eyes. Do we need a marker to draw a mustache? We are deifying a racist, a homophobe, and a misogynist. We are awarding the Medal of Freedom to a man who advocated stoning to death any group he hated and opposed women's right to vote. One good thing is that the German people no longer have to be ashamed. Story 19. Did he recently say this? He says so much outlandish bullshit so often that it is hard to keep track. But this specifically? Story 20. It is one of the few times in his life he has told the unvarnished truth. Story 21. From day one, he has cared for only one person, himself. Any logical person knows he would eat his own children to save himself. He does not care about the country or his base. They are just useful to him. He understands that with the Make America Great Again crowd, it is easier for them to believe the lies than to admit they are the mark. They are suckers to him, just like the contractors he has stiffed over the years. Has he even paid Giuliani yet? Story 22. Right-wingers were outraged at President Obama because he said the police who arrested a black doctor for trespassing in his own home were being stupid. They argued he should have used that moment to bring the country together by expressing support for both sides and called his remarks divisive. I predict that right-wingers will celebrate President Obama's eventual death, whether from old age or otherwise. Story 23. This is the most contrived statement of his presidency. It's only downhill from here. I say this as a conservative. He is a pretty disgusting man, and this takes the cake. This quote alone should be a bigger scandal than Epstein. Story 24. No surprise. He does not give a shit about our country. This is just another financial con job for him. Story 25. Finally, words of truth from our worthless leader. I guess there is a first time for everything. The only thing he cares about is money. Story 26. I am not surprised. This is how we got here. Terrible leadership and millions of idiots worship him. Story 27. I think Clinton was right when she called his voters a basket of deplorables. Story 28. Centrists, swing voters, and non-voters really messed up in 2024. Story 29. Usually that would be shocking. For Trumpy McFuckstick, it is just another day. Story 30. He never cared about anyone or anything, including his Make America Great Again base. His only concerns were regaining power, avoiding prison, and staying in power by any means necessary. The only other thing he cares about is that he knows he is running out of time. Story 31. He is a sociopath. Of course he would say that. He likes division and infighting. Story 32. I think that is pure Trump. He is what we know him to be. It is the Make America Great Again movement that does not see reality. Story 33. They have already issued a whitewashing walkback of what he said, claiming his could not care less remark only referred to an earlier statement that he would get in trouble for what he was about to say, and that he could not care less if he did. I am not buying it either. Story 34. I know he is an asshole, but I can't help but keep pointing out the timing. Yes, there is the whole Kirk thing, but this was on the anniversary of September 11th. If Bush had said that on September 12th, can you imagine? Story 35. I am glad I finally have a quote I can just point to whenever the next person both sides me. Story 36. This is the first time he has told the truth in 50 years. That is in his favor. The truth will set us free. Story 37. Actually, I'm pretty impressed he said, couldn't care less, and not could care less. Story 38. He cares about no Americans except himself. Story 39. Rarely he tells the truth. Famous examples include, I do not care about you. I just want your vote. Jeffrey Epstein is a fantastic guy. It is even said he loves beautiful women as much as I do, some of them on the younger side. Story 40. It confirmed to me that dividing the country was always the goal. Story 41. He is a dumbass. I think he meant he did not care if what he was about to say might get him in trouble, not that he did not care about bringing the country back together. Story 42. Trump is in office to stay out of prison and get richer. He could not give a flying fuck about what happens to any of us unless we bolster his wallet and ego. Story 43. He knows he is on his way out, so he is already checked out. Story 44. It's a breath of fresh air to hear him say something true. Story 45. His handler wants a divided country. If the country is divided, it cannot prosecute him, pass laws to stop him, or do anything. He is an embarrassment to this country, and history will not be kind to him. Story 46. It couldn't be more obvious that the people who wanted him in office did not want a black woman in charge of the country. He says and does whatever he wants. Story 47. I'm more concerned about a sitting United States president who faces allegations of organizing racist kidnapping schemes, spreading misinformation about the global pandemic, involvement in the January 6th attack, and sexual assault. No more defending this person. Story 48. For more than 2/3 of my life, this would have been utter poison for any political career. Now Republicans cheer for it. They want a civil war. They do. They really do. Story 49. Yes, we all know that. It has been fairly obvious for about a decade now. Story 50. He is honest because he does not care and is only concerned with his own power, ratings, self-promotion, and enrichment. Story 51. Fixing the problem is not what he was elected to do. This is what America voted for. If we want to fix it, we must vote differently. Remember Rubio saying that words have consequences and that leaders should not feed narratives built on anger? That is where we are now. The American people helped create this problem, and now we face many problems to solve in addition to deepening division. Story 52. Make America Great Again supporters came out of the woodwork after Kirk's death, showing up in many different subreddits and pushing hateful rhetoric that blamed the political left for the violence as soon as it happened. I know they know how to find these subreddits, but after scrolling quite a bit, I don't see any of them here right now. I'm interested to see whether they are waiting for talking points on how to spin this or whether they will just ignore it altogether. Story 53. I couldn't care less. What I mean by that snide remark is that there is nothing Trump could do or say that would make me despise him any more than I already do. This is par for the course for that fascist, traitorous scumbag. Story 54. Not surprised. He has never been fit for the office of the President of the United States. Story 55. The man who spent the last decade trying to tear this country apart suddenly wants to put it back together? No, I do not think so. Story 56. I think it is interesting that a symptom of advancing dementia is that the filters start to fail. Story 57. This is not surprising at all. Anyone paying attention knows he does not care about uniting the country. The more divided we are, the happier the convicted felon becomes. Story 58. We misunderstood because the side of his face was not cooperating. Story 59. He took the job for the immunity granted by the Supreme Court, not because he wants to lead the nation. Story 60. Has he abdicated his responsibilities and should he be forced to step down? Story 61. Just another day of the traitorous fuck saying things that, by all rights, should result in his immediate impeachment and removal. Story 62. Division fueled his rise. He relies on it for power. Why would he want political harmony? Story 63. It is clear he does not want to unite the country. He wants to remove everyone who does not agree with him. Story 64. Couldn't care less. Let them eat cake. Story 65. I think when people show you who they are, you believe them. Story 66. This is reason number 7,184,929 why Trump should never have been president. The fact his name is even mentioned unironically in American politics after January 6th shows just how far we've fallen. Story 67. When people tell you exactly who they are, believe them. Release the unredacted Epstein files. Story 68. I feel bad, I guess, but I do not expect anything from that decaying meatball. Story 69. He is not my president or any president of the United States. All he does is care about himself and his billionaire buddies. We are now a divided state of rump DSR, not the United States. Story 70. He has clearly reached the phase of his presidency where the only lies that matter anymore are the ones that keep him out of jail. Story 71. It sums it all up. He was elected to help us, but he does not give a damn about us. Story 72. He was given the presidency through vote manipulation specifically to destroy the United States. Even in his first term, everyone he appointed was installed to destroy that agency. Billionaires want it destroyed so they can buy the wreckage and create feudal network states. Vladimir Putin wants it destroyed out of jealousy, and because the United States used to assist the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the only thing preventing him from taking over Europe. China wants the United States destroyed so it becomes the only manufacturing superpower. Donald Trump willingly does all those things for money. Story 73. He should just borrow Melania's "I really don't care. Do you?" jacket. Story 74. Everyone knows he never has. I'm just glad he finally said it out loud. Now none of his taint cleaners have to pretend anymore. Story 75. He considers those who do not vote for him to be his enemies and wishes them dead. Story 76. Making America divided again is what this buffoon is doing. Story 77. When people accuse him of being a foreign asset and he says things like this, it is understandable why the accusation is circulating. It feels like the United States is under occupation by multiple countries and a few corporations. Story 78. We elected someone who only cares about themselves. This is not shocking to anyone who has heard of Donald Trump. Story 79. We are now in the find-out stage of the phrase elections have consequences. Story 80. This is exactly who he has been for a long time. If you were surprised by this, I do not know what to tell you. Story 81. Exactly as expected. I do not know why anyone would expect more from this ghoul of a man. Story 82. It's Trump. He's always been like this. Some people just pretend he hasn't. Story 83. The only people shocked are the dopes who believe Trump wanted to unite the country. He has always been divisive and only interested in destroying his enemies and amassing more wealth. Story 84. He never cared. We have been screaming that into the void for years. Story 85. I think if the federal government were functioning as intended, he would be thrown out of the Oval Office for being a threat to public safety. He specifically said that right-wing extremists are just concerned citizens, essentially excusing their violence and behavior. Even if you are a Trump supporter, you need to understand that this person is putting everyone in danger with this kind of reckless bile he spews every chance he gets. Remember, the attacker who tried to kill Trump was himself a supporter, and he killed a Trump supporter at that event. Just because you are right-wing does not mean you are safe from right-wing extremism. Story 86. Yet all I hear from the right is that the left needs to tone down the rhetoric and come together. Fuck off. It is the far right tearing this nation at the seams. Call me when Obama sends the military into Tampa or when he is grinning while opening a concentration camp for anyone without enough pigment in their skin. The president is a lying sack of shit who only cares about vainglory and power. Why should I have to be a better moral citizen than the fucking president? Story 87. Please get this through your head. Donald Trump cares only about himself. Story 88. Putin is getting exactly what he wants. Division and rot of this once great nation. The administration is more than willing to do its part to erode democracy. Lies beget lies until societies crumble under the hooves of unjust men. Story 89. He's not afraid to say what he thinks. Yeah, that's called an asshole. Story 90. He pardoned people who tried to overthrow the government, and people think this is not normal for him. Story 91. People leading Project 2025 are holding his Epstein files hostage, willing to erase his past so he can reshape America according to their plan. If you search the Project 2025 checklist, it is almost 50% complete. Story 92. Trump is at fault. He's the belligerent asshole who started the shit when his fat ass rode down the golden escalator. Story 93. There was nothing in his line of rhetoric or any of his campaigns to suggest that he ever wanted to. He just said the quiet part out loud. Story 94. Nothing new. Trump only cares about how much money he is making from the presidency. Story 95. Anyone who believed Donald Trump ever cared about anyone other than himself is the biggest idiot in history. Story 96. Not much, since the answer was obvious to anyone paying attention back in 2015 or earlier. He has never hidden this fact. People were just too inattentive to notice. But hey, welcome. Thanks for finally catching up. Story 97. I think he is in the wrong job and should know it. He does not care, though. Story 98. I think it is obvious that he is poor at the job of being president. Story 99. It is amazing how willing Reddit users were to unite with Donald Trump and his supporters until he said that. We were so close. Story 100. He never did. He is divisive and has been throughout his political career. Story 101. He is being honest. He has never cared about bringing the country together and will not care in the future. Story 102. He doesn't care because it's working exactly as he and his cult want it to. Story 103. I think he is being honest. He does not care about anything but himself. He has demonstrated that repeatedly without ever showing a hint of compassion. I simply cannot understand how people think differently. Story 104. His followers are an army of people who will hurt themselves to spite the left. Do you think they care about bringing the country together? Story 105. He is not a president. He is a foreign agent, and he demonstrates it repeatedly. He is also a horrible human being, a man with the levers of power who could try to heal the schism in the United States but instead follows orders that exacerbate it. Story 106. We are not even through the first year of his second term. I am confident the United States will not last 3 more years. He was elected to end it. Story 107. I think many of his supporters agree with the message. Much of the division we see exists online. It does exist in reality because of recent events, but it is not nearly as hysterical as the internet makes it out to be. Story 108. Unsurprising. Half of us have already been saying this. The only difference is he is not even hiding it anymore, and his supporters will never change their minds. The fact that they can ignore his associations with Jeffrey Epstein is damning. They are not supporting him to improve America but to harm people they dislike. Story 109. A few minutes later in the same speech, he called for the right to seek revenge against the left and did not mean only at the ballot box. He is pushing us towards civil war. Story 110. I think what I have always thought of him. He is a worthless piece of shit. Story 111. Wow, he actually told the truth. Those strokes must really be taking a toll on him. Story 112. He is busy creating business opportunities for his family and friends. They buy and sell stocks and trade cryptocurrencies for profit. Story 113. A rare moment of honesty from the orange piece of shit. Not surprising. Everything he has done over the last 10 years shows he could not care less about the damage he has caused to this country. Story 114. Which idiot thought he would care? Have they been living under a rock for the past 30 years? Story 115. Is this a surprise? He has been fueling the opposite for at least 10 years. Story 116. He is an arsehole. He has always been and will always be. All he is interested in is self-preservation and using people to benefit himself. He is a scumbag, a criminal, a rapist, and almost certainly a pedophile. He is the type of person most countries would lock up, but the United States of America made him president and stands by while he destroys the country and tramples the Constitution. Good old United States of America. Whatever happens is on the people for allowing this farce to continue. Story 117. I think he does not want us united because we are more powerful and capable when we work together, and because we would hold him accountable for his role in the Epstein files. Story 118. I guess it is not much different from when the last one made incoherent sounds when asked the same question. Story 119. He actually told the truth. We should celebrate when it happens because it is rare. Story 120. Are you surprised? I'm not. He has never done anything to indicate he is trying to bring people together, unless they are racists, wealthy people, or people he can scam. As they say, actions speak louder than words and his actions speak volumes. Story 121. The president is no longer the leader of the United States of America. If the position actually were, there would be no way we would all be in this mess. I say this because President Clinton was impeached for a consensual sexual act with an adult compared with what we have now. It does not pass the sniff test. Story 122. He is a never-ending source of nihilistic awfulness. Truly one of the most puerile, mendacious demagogues in American history. The Republicans bent the knee and let him take over. Now they are aghast because the temperature is out of control. The right is blinded by rage, but at some point Donald Trump will be gone. What then? What will you have? Will you hold each other responsible? Story 123. Probably the only time he has not lied in his entire life. Story 124. At least Trump is hiding in plain sight. Does Make America Great Again just not give a shit? Story 125. I think he is doing exactly what he wants, and it is the opposite of not caring. It is seriously terrifying. I feel most people have only seen the clip leading up to the line, "I could not care less," but not what he says afterwards. He specifically says that radicals on the right do things out of fear and concern, whereas radicals on the left are the problem and are horrible and nasty. This is an absolute dog whistle to his followers that the time for compromise is over and that there can be no reasoning with the left at this point. He is teeing everything up for more violence, shootings, assassinations, and instability. Because his ultimate goal is control, he wants either a population that is unified and fully loyal to him, or a population that is not unified and is fighting against each other instead of united against him. Story 126. He wants chaos and instigates it. He is a narcissist. Narcissists create chaos because it makes them feel powerful. I assure you he will not bring the country together. He will keep driving a wedge between the left and the right. Story 127. Rare moment of honesty from one of the worst presidents we have ever had and one of the worst human beings who has ever lived. The man is not Hitler, but I believe he wishes he were, and he is not far from that on the list. Story 128. Trump is a dementia sundowner who has never known love or happiness in his life. He is a piece of garbage propped up by the hateful, selfish, and uneducated. He is destroying our country and harming his own supporters. National embarrassment from top to bottom. Story 129. That's not what he meant. He meant that he could not care less, but he was going to say this. A lot of right-wing extremists are just upset about crime. Story 130. It sounds exactly like him, as well as many of the people who voted for him. Story 131. I already have the lowest possible opinion of him. Nothing he says can make it lower. Story 132. He is a fascist and a pedophile, so I am not surprised. Frankly, I do not want to come together with him or with people who support him. Story 133. Seriously, moderators, can we ban these karma farming posts? Whether they are bots or just people going for low-hanging fruit, at least try to put in the same effort you showed when you started banning and locking threads after Kirk was shot. Story 134. The political right often says that Obama was so divisive. The former president is the worst we have ever had by a country mile. Story 135. It is despicable and one of the most basic and fundamental requirements we should expect of an adult, let alone someone in his position. What a selfish prick. Story 136. He is a scumbag and a traitor who should be impeached and thrown in jail. Story 137. All I can say is don't believe all these Reddit posts. Story 138. He is a divider. A hate-breeding shit stain on America and humanity itself. Story 139. I am not particularly surprised. Democrats are the ones who constantly reach across the aisle because they have not moved past the 1970s. Story 140. He repeatedly shows that even when you put aside his horrendous policies, he is still an objectively terrible leader. Story 141. Non-stop and divisive. He has never tried to unite the country in any way. Everything is framed as a complaint about us versus them. Story 142. This is par for the course for this guy. That is why, when he dies, I will celebrate and laugh, because his death will rid the world of one more piece of shit and make it a better place. Sorry, not sorry. Fuck him. Story 143. He wants us divided. That has been clear since day one of his first term. Story 144. To be fair, he said he couldn't care less about getting in trouble for what he's about to say. Context is important. I am not a fan of his, by the way. Story 145. The Kirk thing is good for Trump. He is one step closer to martial law. Story 146. That quote is taken out of context. He was referring to receiving criticism for his view on how the far right differs from the far left, not to the question itself. Listen to the entire statement. Story 147. Same thing I have always thought. Trump is a pedophile, a rapist, a con man, and a bankrupt person. Story 148. Not my president. Try that in a large metropolitan area. Story 149. He is a president for Republicans, not a Republican president. Story 150. I live in an area where many homes had Trump signs. I don't see any now. In fact, some of them have replaced their Trump signs with Democratic nominees. These are boomers as well. It's slowly sinking in. Story 151. If he couldn't care less about bringing the country back together, then he has no business being president. Story 152. It is not possible anyway. I do not think he should have said it, but we are never going to be back together. Story 153. Not surprised at all. He is in it for himself. He used hatred to gather support from ignorant people so he could avoid prison. The country and its people mean nothing to him but money. Story 154. His goal is to create chaos to gain control. Anyone with half a brain can see it. Story 155. He has never tried to bring the United States together. That does not benefit him. Division does. Chaos does. Authoritarians need destabilization so that people are scared and desperate enough to allow them to lead. It is a simple recipe that Trump has been using since he took office. Make sure there is a them and us. You need an enemy. Destroy the economy. He has set that one in motion. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is busy destroying healthcare. It is a blueprint they are following. Uniting does not work with this plan. Story 156. Just as expected from a traitor and an incompetent person. Unfortunately, millions who bought into both sides got us into this mess with psychopaths at the helm. Story 157. Donald Trump is clearly lying. He cares deeply about dividing the country because every time he appears on television he boasts about how great he is while slandering everyone who disagrees with him. The issue with Donald Trump is not indifference. He is actively fomenting division. Story 158. That tracks for him. He is not even pretending to be a president for all Americans. He is a demagogue working toward one-party rule, and conservatives wonder why people dislike him and are eagerly awaiting his political downfall. Story 159. Since this is by design, I would simply say I told you so to anyone who says otherwise. Story 160. Anyone paying attention has known for years that he hates America. He just wants to burn as much of it down as he can before he dies. Story 161. This might be the first true thing he has said since taking office. Story 162. I am just surprised he did not say he could care less. I guess even a functionally illiterate dude can get a phrase correct every once in a while. Story 163. I think this is more of a distraction from the Epstein files, and we should be discussing what steps are being taken to investigate and prosecute him. Story 164. It is consistent with everything else he has ever said and done. Story 165. Frankly, it is a bit of a relief to hear Trump tell the truth for once. Story 166. Melania wore a coat bearing the words "I really don't care. Do you?" She wore it during a visit to an immigrant children's detention center. Story 167. I am not even a little surprised. He lies about everything except the things he should. Story 168. I think this is not a surprise, especially when so much of his base voted to own the libs or hurt the right people. They view politics as a cudgel to beat others with. Story 169. For possibly the very first time ever, I believe he is telling the truth. Story 170. He is as divisive as we have said and is in the Epstein files. Story 171. That is why the right voted for him. They do not want unity. They want to rule over and destroy the left, whom they view as literal enemies rather than political opponents. Story 172. I think it is the only honest thing he has said since becoming president again. Story 173. The only reason he is in office is to avoid legal prosecution. He has surrounded himself with corruption that enables him to do so. I could not care less about what happens to him or his associates. Story 174. I am not a supporter, not in the slightest. You took his words out of context. He said, I couldn't care less about getting himself in trouble. Story 175. Give him credit because it's the truth. Donald J. Trump only cares about one thing, himself. Story 176. Trump is dying. He's having a stroke before our eyes. He doesn't care about anything or anyone. Story 177. It is the truth. Trump does not care about anyone or anything but himself and money. Story 178. Every minimum wage job has higher standards than the people who voted for Donald. Such employers would dismiss him for saying that. Story 179. He finally realized that he had failed. Story 180. We tried to warn his fans that he is a douche. Story 181. Trump is inflammatory because he loves controversy. He cannot exist without constant attention and cannot be a team player or part of a solution. In his mind, he is the solution to everything. Story 182. He is a terrible person and an unfit president, but this quote is being grossly misrepresented. He said he could not care less about the backlash he will get from blaming this attack on leftists, which is not the same as saying he does not care about unity. That may be true, but it was not his statement. Story 183. He is busy tearing it apart. Why would he want to bring it back together? There is zero incentive to do so while his side remains in power. It is only going to get worse. Story 184. Trump says reprehensible, divisive, and straight-up treasonous things every day. For him, this is par for the course. Story 185. Anyone living in the real world and not holding a curated point of view knows this, so it's not a big deal. His base does not care because being wrong is the worst thing they can imagine, beyond the idea of gay people and minorities being happy and living lives similar to everyone else's. Story 186. Why should he care? Only decent people care about others. That is something he and his maggots cannot be accused of. Story 187. I believe that he does not care in the slightest about helping this country or a single person who voted for him. He is willing to kill anyone through his ineptitude to put another penny in his greasy pockets. He will always be out for himself. Release the Epstein files. Story 188. I think bullies have more power when the audience is divided. He is a bully, not a leader of the citizens of the United States. Story 189. He is the reason for what is happening today in the United States. There was hatred and division before him, but it was nowhere near what it is now. He is the only one who has brought the country to chaos. Story 190. He is acting as he always has and as people voted for. Everything happening in our country is the result of those choices. Story 191. It shows he is capable of being truthful, or it just slips out of his Swiss cheese brain when he is not paying attention. Story 192. That is because he is a Russian asset and Russia wants to see America crumble, so Trump will not make it better. Story 193. This is one of the few truths he has told in his life. He must be getting paranoid about entering heaven. His supporters will still believe his lies that he is looking out for them. He even said he couldn't care less. Story 194. I think that the left is too far gone to have any kind of rational conversation anymore. Just look at the past 24 hours. With people cheering and laughing over a conservative activist's death. They have shown that they cannot be reasoned with, so why bother trying? Story 195. That he never cared, and the entire world told you so. Story 196. It is a surprisingly honest answer from him. It is a rare moment to get a truthful response, and it is shocking. I believe him. Deep down, I think he really feels that way. He truly does not give a single fuck about the country. Not one bit, and he is not afraid to say it. The American people can go suck a bag of dicks for all he cares. He should get credit for being so forthright about how he feels about America. It is Nobel Prize-level leadership and honesty. Story 197. I think it is time for Donnie to be removed from office. It is long overdue. Story 198. The only thing that surprises me about that is he used the correct term, couldn't care less, instead of could care less. He's a divisive, hateful turd. At this point, I'm only surprised when he is coherent. Story 199. I would not have expected a decent answer from this asshole. He has long been a hateful, divisive piece of shit. Story 200. He should be impeached and removed by the Senate. He does not get to pick and choose which citizens he serves. If he cannot even pretend to want to serve all of our best interests, he is not qualified for the job of our public servant, the president. Story 201. It makes me think about all the people who voted for that person who is transparent about his beliefs and what he stands for. Story 202. It makes me see him for who he is. When you divide, you conquer. Story 203. I would happily return to the party of small government if it stopped trying to destroy the country I love. The Democrats dislike me despite my supporting their efforts for nearly a decade, and I cannot vote for the right because of their dangerous rhetoric. We need a third party to hold the two major parties accountable. I do not see any other way for the country to cool off. Story 204. I think he is being honest. Nothing is surprising about his statement. Story 205. Par for the severely fucked up course. He's a bad dude. We elected a narcissist autocrat. Story 206. I am so burned out after 10 years of this man. No matter how horrid and despicable you think he is, he always proves to be far worse. He has done dramatic damage to this country, And I hope there is still something left to salvage when he is finally, mercifully, gone. Story 207. I think we all know Donald Trump could not care less about putting the country back together. It is obvious from his hateful actions, especially toward education and healthcare research, where he is intent on destroying universities by suing them for ridiculously large sums. Story 208. The Divider-in-Chief. Why would anyone be surprised? He is pure evil incarnate. Story 209. My response is, I hope that the drop on the side of his face lasts a little bit longer. Story 210. It is incredibly disrespectful to the office he holds. But honestly, does anyone expect anything different from him? He is always about division. The entire reason he has power is that he used hatred to rally his base. Story 211. I do not know how any person of integrity would not demand impeachment. Story 212. That is on brand for Make America Great Again. Were you expecting a different answer? Story 213. I think it is a sitting president who is in charge of a group of moronic citizens and does not care. Seriously, look at how we treat our presidents. Americans and journalists are cruel and hateful, and that applies to both parties. The things I have heard people say about Joe Biden's dementia and about Donald Trump are beyond cruel. They are brutal verbal attacks that should never be given a platform. But thank you, social media. You have shown us our own humanity. Story 214. Nothing surprises me when it comes to him. I cannot believe how far gone this country is. And it has not even been a year yet. Story 215. He does not need to unite the country to continue making money, to keep his wealthy friends making money, and to stay out of jail. He has the power. No one is challenging him. Why change anything? Story 216. Obviously not nearly qualified to be President of the United States, as we have all known since 2016. Story 217. This is the one time I believe he is telling the truth in an interview. The facade slipped, and now we are hearing his true feelings. Story 218. I listened to the interview, and this is not an accurate headline. He said he was going to say something that would get him in trouble, but that he could not care less. And then he launched into a tirade about radicals on the right who do not want to see crime. He is saying he does not care if his unhinged response makes headlines. His proposed fix is to start prosecuting political opponents. He threatened to pursue a racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations case, which is worse than simply not caring how to fix the country. Story 219. It's been obvious since day one that the goal is the absolute opposite. He would prefer that Democrats go away or be imprisoned, and that everyone in the world be a right-wing fanatic who loves King Trump. Story 220. I think he is actively trying to destroy the United States from within. Story 221. He does not care because he actually told the truth. His power comes from fear-mongering about the evil other to sycophantic supporters. If he started with messages of unity, respect, and compromise, he would lose his supporters and his power. Pushing division and fear over undocumented immigrants and leftists is the heart and soul of the TV character Donald Trump. He does not want to bring the country back together. He wants to drive wedges to keep his supporters in fear and to protect his power. Story 222. Isn't it his job to serve the American people and the Constitution? Story 223. The right will continue to blame the left for the divide in this country. They refuse to look in the mirror. Story 224. He does not have to care. I know plenty of people who will blame our current state of division on Barack Obama. Story 225. Not surprised by that answer at all. Frankly, I am amazed people do not try to pick that apart. Story 226. I am not surprised, considering he has only promoted division in this country for the entire time. Story 227. I did not think the guy who spent the past 10 years dividing the country would give a different answer. Story 228. Why would he want to? He is the one who divided us for power. Story 229. He is just doing his actual job, following someone else's agenda. Story 230. I was surprised that he said it correctly and did not say, could care less. Story 231. He never has. It has always been about the money and power. He is just not hiding it anymore, and the suckers or marks lap it up like a kitten drinking milk. Story 232. He won the popular vote, which unfortunately most Americans agree with. Story 233. Shocked. Not really. Anyway, release the unredacted Epstein files. Story 234. That is not a very presidential thing to do. Imagine your manager at work saying the same thing when all the employees are at each other's throats. That manager is not doing their job. Story 235. Why are people so surprised when he says what he means? Seriously, he told you everything he would, including what you wanted to hear, and you only heard what you wanted to hear. Story 236. Division is what he wants. He stokes it, so this is not at all out of character. Story 237. Look who we're talking about. It should not be a surprise to anyone. They want outright fascism. These are not people who have any respect for the norms of our political system, and they do everything in their power to increase division. Story 238. I'm just surprised that he got that saying right. I would have expected could care less from him. Story 239. What is when Trump finally dies? Alex, the Daily Double. Story 240. The feeling is mutual. We can run the country without him. We do not need him. Move on. Opt out. Story 241. From a letter by James Mattis, Donald Trump's first Secretary of Defense. After resigning, Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people and does not even pretend to try. Instead, he tries to divide us. We are witnessing the consequences of 3 years of this deliberate effort and of 3 years without mature leadership. We can unite without him by drawing on the strengths inherent in our civil society. This will not be easy, as the past few days have shown, but we owe it to our fellow citizens, to past generations who bled to defend our promise, and to our children. Story 242. I am utterly appalled that anyone would even conceive of asking him this question. Story 243. The left versus right divide is very important to him and the other oligarchs. Keeps the money flowing to the top. Story 244. People want to be lied to as long as it brings feel-good emotions. When was the last time a president unified the country? What did they do and what needs to be done to unify us today? Trump is not polished, but he is speaking plainly. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.